All right, guys. You know, I have never asked for help for myself, and this is another video where I'm not asking for help for myself. This is for a long-term activist who I have to say is not well liked, but he's been out there for a long time, and he's got a case that I think is very important. It's up in Pennsylvania. I think it's kind of along the lines of Turner versus Driver importance, and that's why I'm here. And I've got Doc, who has been working, he's a psychologist, and he's been working with us for years behind the scenes. And then I got CJ Grisham, who's been a longtime activist, first, second, activist for everything that we always have to put up with, that we see. I highly respect both these guys. That's why they're here. CJ is a law student, but I just respect him. All right. I respect his opinion and his knowledge. And I thought he was probably one of the best people to get out here. He's been on the streets. He studies law. He's been involved with law for a long time, studying it. And now he's going to make it official pretty soon. And Doc, same thing. He's been involved for many years behind the scenes. So that's why they're here. I'm going to try to keep this short. I want help for this, for Pissed Off Taxpayer. That's the channel. He's been arrested for recording the mayor conversation and then posting it. All right. And that's BS. The law says that they can, but it's a BS law. It needs to go away. But the first importance is to get him off of this thing. And hopefully doing that, we'll be able to either correct that law or get rid of it completely, where they can't pull this kind of stuff on people because they're just using it to hurt him and get back at him. And it's a felony charge. I'm thinking third degree, but I might be wrong. Doc can correct that when he's ready. So hopefully we convince y'all to help him financially. He's got a good lawyer, good firm, but he's very limited in his income. And so hopefully by the end of this, we'll be able to convince you to throw some money his way, even if it's just $1 or $2 from each one of y'all. That'll go a long ways if there's enough of y'all. And I'm going to ask some of the other channels to share this video or do a video of their own on this. So CJ, we've talked back and forth about this with Doc, with me, you. I'm just going to put it out there. What do you think about this? Winnable, not winnable, difficult, worthy?
Well, thankfully, he's got a good attorney. I do think it's winnable. It's going to be difficult, and it's because of the way the law is written. At first glance, it would appear that it's not in his favor. Whoever drafted this law pretty much did a good job in trying to think about the potential of how it's going to be used later and how they're going to get around it. And they've added ways to ensure that they don't get around it, not only through the use of defining terms, but also in ensuring that it didn't delineate between public and private people, public and private conversations, etc. And it only provided very limited exceptions. So it's, on first glance, looking at this, when I first learned about this case, I thought, oh, well, this is going to be easy. And then I pulled up the law and I'm like, oh, okay, well, we can't use that argument. Oh, we're not going to be able to use that argument. And so his attorney is probably going to have to use some unique arguments. I've looked through the case law on the 18th Pennsylvania Code of Statutes, I think is what they called it. But it's section 5703 is what we're talking about. And the case law that I have seen, and there might be something out there that I just haven't found yet, has nothing to do with public servants. And so I think that there's an exception that can be carved out by a good attorney under the public elected official type of an exception under the First Amendment, seeking redress. I think there's also, because of the fact that he published it, that you have a right to gather news content, and especially from public officials. Anything that a public official does is newsworthy. And there's no requirement, as you know, that a media person have any type of credentials. It's just that we got freedom of the press. It doesn't say who the press is. We are the press. The people are the press. And so the fact that he published it, you know, it looks, when you read the law, like, okay, he would have been fine had he not published it. But the arguments we have here are constitutional. So let me just summarize all this word vomit I'm giving you. It's going to be a tough case, but there are not only constitutional defenses, but probably other defenses as well that I would argue that might be novel, that haven't been brought before the courts yet. Because I just can't find anything. Most of the case law is about cops recording without permission, people recording, for example, coaches or ex-wives, things like that, or ex-husbands. And that's what most of the case law is about. It's not about recording a mayor. So this is a new thing.
Let me interject something here. Anybody that's listened to Kevin, that's his name, who's Pissed Off Taxpayer, we'll just call him Pot for short. He has a speaking impediment, and he has also very, very severe ADD. And so we're looking at involving ADA rights in this as well. The reason he records is because he has ADD. He doesn't get everything the first time through, and listening to it again and again and again, he gets more and more. And then by publishing it, he gets other people's input as well to further enhance his understanding of it. And that's all well accepted. So even if you just listen to him speaking, you right off the bat, he has a speaking impediment. You can understand right off the bat, there's not something right there. And just extrapolating from that. So he really doesn't even need to announce it. Just listening to him, you right off the bat. And so an ADA offense is probably going to be rolled into part of this.
Yeah, and I think an ADA defense is a good defense. I'm going to try and poke some holes into it, because anybody that you know, a good attorney doesn't just present an argument. He looks at, okay, what would be my counter argument, and then how can I undermine that counter argument to my argument. So the courts, when it comes to a constitutional issue, you know, for example, we have the right to keep and bear arms, right? Now, while I'm a person that believes that I should have a tank if I can afford one, the fact of the matter is that the courts have essentially adjudicated that as long as a government can, or the state can, identify a compelling government interest under a strict scrutiny analysis to why they put a particular restriction on an enumerated right, then that law can stand. So, you know, for example, I'll use the stupid argument about crying, you know, yelling fire in a crowded theater. Well, you know, there's this misconception you're not allowed to yell fire in a theater, but actually you can. If there's a fire in the theater, I would hope someone's yelling there's a fire in the theater. So it's not a blanket exception. But when the government says you can't use your speech to create panic that you know, may cause injury or panic, like yelling fire in a crowded theater when there is no fire, well, there's a compelling government interest in restricting that type of speech, because it could hurt other people, and it's been articulated. So in this case, if you were to bring up the ADA, what I would argue if I were a prosecutor, and I still think there's an easy counter argument to even this, what I would argue is, oh, okay, that's fine. He's got rights under the ADA. Yes, he's got to record because it's part of his processing that he needs for his disability. But all we ask is that you identify, or, you know, you inform the other party. So that's not a huge burden. It's not an undue burden. It's not a big burden on the individual. It's a minor inconvenience to just say, hey, I've got a disability that requires me to record this conversation so that I, you know, because of my medical disability. He doesn't have to go into what it is or anything like that. And the problem would come if they denied that and said, no, you're still not allowed to record me. I still don't consent, you know, and that's when you say, well, screw you, I'm gonna do it anyway, and we'll take it to court. So that would be the counter argument to the ADA argument.
one of the things here, let me give you a little bit more basis of the case. Essentially, Kevin Pott recorded the mayor talking about another case that he had. And the mayor, I don't think had a problem, but the problem here is the police in the town that he lives in didn't like him, and they actually solicited the complaint. So it's like probably the police going to solicit somebody for a trespass. Well, that's solicitation of trespass, solicitation of a complaint. So in that respect, it's just wrong. If the mayor felt it was upset, it would be one thing. But again, he's an elected official. He's on the clock 24/7. The other person has a 9 to 5. So where they're on the clock, then they're officially a public official or public servant or whatever you want to call it. And we're allowed under the Constitution to do that. And that's kind of the simplest terminology of what's behind this case.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it wouldn't be that difficult for an attorney to convince a court to find that there is a public official a public official exception to the law, even though it's not in there because of the First Amendment. And even because of your ADA rights that have been bestowed by the federal government to certain accommodations and things like that. So there's, like I said, it's a winnable argument, especially if you've got a good attorney. I think I don't even think this has to go to trial. I think you could win this case just on pretrial motions and affirmative defenses that you could try to apply. And it sounds like he's got good attorneys, but it's not going to be an easy case, but it is a winnable case.
And what I would pull back off of this just because they don't want it to go to to a higher court where it can be thrown out.
Exactly. And if he starts laying out these good defenses, they might say, quote, this is what they use when they know they're going to lose either at trial or at the appellate level, is it's dismissed in the interest of justice. Well, I'm sorry, but no, actually justice requires that you please prosecute me so that I can take this higher. We've got a case in Houston where we're trying to challenge the ordinance that they have that essentially prevents you from carrying a flag at a protest or a rally. And we're begging Houston police to arrest us because we don't have standing to challenge it. And unless we go to court, but they keep throwing out our, when we get a ticket, we're like, yes. And
we've seen that many a time.
Yeah. So it's in the interest of justice. It's always dismissed, but we're like, no, we want to go to court. We want to fight you on this. But they might not want that case law. And so
there's some psychology behind that.
Right.
Yeah.
All right.
Go ahead.
Doc, go ahead. Add whatever you want, and let's try to wrap this up.
Well, again, here the idea is Kevin doesn't have a lot of money, and he's got really a high-end lawyer who actually has a foot in both criminal and civil, which is the ideal match for this case, because he's going to walk it through the criminal and then take it into the civil and hopefully get a new Turner driver on the third, or some rough equivalent to it, which is really needed. The third is lacking. A few other places are lacking as well, but this is still filling out the puzzle a little bit more. And so we really need some input. Even if you don't like them, do this for your family, do this for your children or whatever else for the future. This is some law that was put in place that didn't involve proper full-on thinking about every person in the country.
And I'm sure
even if you don't like them, even if you don't like them, that's even more of a reason to support this case, because, and granted, it's always good to have a sympathetic defendant, but look, what happened, what this case, the outcome of this case could affect you later. And if you didn't do anything because you didn't like the vehicle that got you to that destination, well, then it's only your fault when you don't get there. And so just remember there's two things. And that was the first one. The first one is it's not just this guy that's affected by this case. It could be everybody. And here's a chance to create case law where it doesn't look like any exists. And second, if you're a constitutionalist, if you're out there arguing and demanding that your First Amendment rights be respected and all that kind of stuff, well, when you really think about it, the Constitution doesn't protect your friends, it protects your enemies. It protects those people you disagree with. because if the Constitution only protected agreeable speech, we wouldn't need the Bill of Rights. So that's another reason that people should support this case and help Kevin, because regardless of their opinions of him, and I don't know him personally, so I don't care, but it sounds like his rights are being violated from all the facts in the case. And we really need to stand up for that, especially for somebody with a disability like he has, because really this is nothing more than the giant state, the police state, trying to stick it to the little man that can't defend himself.
And the one that showed them up a few times.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, they're upset that a man of arguably lesser intelligence is smarter than them.
There's this considered too. This would be for the third district, which I believe is PA, Delaware, and New Jersey. I think is those three states. So it's not only Pennsylvania that would be involved if we get it up to that level. So
Right.
consider that as well.
All right. So
Sure.
I think we've gone long enough. I think we've got enough out there. If we think of something else, we can do a follow-up. But I'm going to encourage those of you that see this, if you got a channel, use it, repost it, use parts of it, do your own thing about it. I can't keep track of all the activists out there, but any activist that's got a outlet in this country should be interested in this, but especially the ones up in the Northeast, up in this area who might come across this. So if you know those people, those channels, those activists, let them know about this video and about this case. Let them decide if they want to use my stuff or do their own. But please help us get this word out there and raise some money for pot. And I'm going to try to get in touch with some of the other activists that I know that would probably be of help too, and put this towards them. Man, I will put the information to send pot some money in the description. And I guess that's it, guys. I really appreciate both y'all being here.
Well, and keep in mind too, and this is the last thing I'll say. I know you want to keep it short, but this case is going to require not just any attorney, but a good attorney with a brain on his shoulders, that is able to make outside the box arguments, because that's what this is going to take. Just because of the way the law is working, he's going to have to make some outside the box arguments and then create that case law. But I think he can do it. If you get a good attorney, you can do it. But to get a good attorney, you got to get money.
Yeah, and it sounds like the attorney's pretty good. I don't know him personally, but it sounds like what I'm hearing, he's a pretty good guy, pretty good at the firm too.
Yeah, he's a good guy, smart. He went to the same school as me.
Oh, we're in trouble. God, we're in trouble.
Okay.
All right, guys. Thanks for being here. I appreciate it. Everybody else, we'll see y'all next time. I appreciate y'all joining in. Bye.
Thanks, Steve.